I'm excited about this episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast. I have a returning guest, a special guest, good friend, David Perry, who has made over 1,600 executive placements. And when I talk about like 1,600, what is it? You've only had 3 fall out of those 1,600?
6.
Okay, 6. So we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about a new website that he is launching that is going to be the job board for the recruiters, but also built by the recruiters. But one of the things that we were kind of like chatting about before we got started, like we asked a question in a Facebook group, or at least I asked a question like, hey, what would you love to hear about from a person that has made 1,600 executive placements? And we got some really good questions and we're going to go through those, but we got some other things. David, if you want to kind of jump in on like some of those questions that you saw.
It was funny. I thought it was funny that probably 40% of them were focused on no way build all those and blah, blah, that money. But couldn't have made that many placements, blah, blah, blah. And all I could think was, if it was me getting a chance to talk to a biller, perhaps I hadn't busted the $1 million mark, or I hadn't busted the 1,000 placement mark. I'd want to know the answers to the question, like, how did you do that? Because, we've known each other for a while. And as you figured out, I'm not all that special. I don't even have the verbal acuity that, a lot of the people in the industry have. So, what's particular about me? I thought was funny. But, as I said, not the question I would have asked. I mean, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Fortune Magazine have asked all these articles, all these questions before. When Wall Street Journal did their piece, I told you this before, when the Wall Street Journal did the piece, they interviewed me in November of 2007. I think it was 7. And for about 3 hours. And then the article never appeared. It took 11 months, 11 or 12 months for the article to finally appear. A stroke in the meantime, for God's sake. Not because of the article. But, I'd given them 7 or 8 people to fact check on. Because some of the stuff is kind of wild in the when they nicknamed me the rogue recruiter in that Wall Street Journal article. So I gave them 7 or 8 to fact check on. Well, I had a stroke, so I wasn't looking for the article. And then all of a sudden, boom, the phone went nuts because the article came out. Finally said to her, "Sir, what was the delay?" She said, "Nobody believed me when I wrote the article and they read it." He said, "My editor said, this guy's full of shit." Bleep that out, right? This guy's full of shit. This guy's a flim-flam artist. So she fact-checked like 90 plus, I don't know the exact, 90 plus people to make sure that she could go back to the editor and say, no, this is reality. So here's the funny part, right? Article comes out. We wrote a whole bunch of business because of the article. We can talk about that, how other people could do that. But I flew down to New York to do Wall Street Journal's television station. They got a So I fly down to New York to do that. I walk in the reception. I had never met Sarah before. Sarah comes running across the room. Jumps in my arms. She's a little thing. Powerhouse, I got to tell you. But next thing you know, I go into a boardroom. There's like literally hundreds of people there who want to meet me because they had nicknamed me the rogue recruiter. She'd actually called me the day before the article came out just to make sure she wasn't getting herself in trouble or I would be upset. Oh, listen, man, it's a great moniker, right? Seriously. So people wanted to shake my hand because they couldn't believe. They knew what she'd gone through to get this article out. I had no idea. Didn't find out for quite some time, right? But yeah, so Wall Street Journal's asked these questions. The New York Times have asked these questions.
Well, and one of the funny things that I thought about some of the questions that I got on that post were, I actually know some of the billings of the people that answered it, and the people that actually, there's a few people that had some really good questions. Some of them are $1 million billers. Like they wanted to know like what your structure was and that kind of stuff. And then like some of the other questions where it was just like, is this a joke? Did ChatGPT get like this number wrong? I was just like,
it's Rich Rosen. You gave him enough clues for Rich to go, I know who it is.
So, but yeah, like we're going to go through like, so definitely, stay tuned. We're going to go through some of those questions, go through some of those answers with David, but let's talk about this job board. So like, let's before we talk about your job board that you're launching for recruiters, let's talk about the evolution of the job boards because you've actually been on the back end and involved with a lot of these things before they launch and as they started.
Yeah. So like why Work Insight? I launched my first job board for the largest technology association in Canada back in, my God, I'm dating myself. Sir, again, you can bleep that out. 1997 or 98. It was called TechnoSkill. It was about 2 weeks behind Monster Board's launch, maybe a little bit farther behind Monster Board's launch. And if anybody actually believes that Jeff, who launched Monster Board, woke up one morning because he had this dream about this monstrously large job board, get off the podcast. There's no hope for you. That's it. No one's ever asked for the truth, and I won't talk about the truth, but let's just say Jeff and I had a meeting probably about 6 months before that. And a couple of other people I'd had meetings with that launched job boards as well. So anyway, we launched TechnoSkill and it went well. It took the Canadian Technology Association from about under 10 members to like 387 because back in the late 90s, everybody needed people like do now, but there were no job boards. I mean, and then all of a sudden they came out and they were a fortune. So we launched this thing and the condition was you have to be a member of CATA, Advanced Technology Association, to get on the job board. But if you're a member of CATA, you can use the job board for free. Well, membership was anywhere from a low of about 20,000 to Nortel and JDS were paying $150,000 a year. So Canada just got ka-ching, just money like you wouldn't believe. So I get to do all kinds of fun stuff. Anyway, TechnoSkill got shelved for a variety of reasons. Doesn't really matter what. Kevin, my best friend, and I brought out Work Insight, the first iteration of it, and we ran it for a while and had some fun, and did some interesting stuff. And then Kevin, unfortunately, was my best friend, and that's not the unfortunate part. Passed away. He passed away as we're getting ready to launch the new iteration of Work Insight, and shelved that. And his brother and I, Dave Watson, Kevin's brother, actually a better developer, by the way. There, I said it, Kev. I think now, right? So it took us a couple of years to develop this along with my new job on sister site. So we've launched Work Insight again. Finally, it's up, it's running, and I've designed it to be the monster killer. I've been on the back end or the front end of so many of these things. Monster, I've been on the front end of LinkedIn, Indeed, Simply Hired. I was on the launch committee for Simply Hired with Seth Godin, because Seth had done a book with Jay when we'd done guerrilla marketing for job hunters. So I've seen all these things, and I know what they were designed initially to do and how they were sold. And after 35 years in the business, I've watched so many of these things come out, so many promises made to recruiters. Oh, just come, just help us build it. We'll take care of it. And I've been screwed every single time. So this job board is built for recruiters. It's free. It'll always be free. People know where I live. So like I'll never charge for it because people can find me easily. And it's designed to put money back in recruiters' pockets, but primarily it's designed to make their job easier. And here's the logic: easier because the American economy, so Canada, and I'm gonna get shit for this later. United States of America and Canada are America. It's North America. So all the don't bother calling me. I don't give a crap. You know that. So the engine of North America's economy are small business. However, most small business can't afford $300 or $1,000 per month per city to advertise for a job. So you could have the best idea in the world. You can be trying to build your business, but because candidates are so conditioned to go to job boards and they can't afford to advertise on them, and they sure as hell can't afford to use recruiters, right? And they'll advertise before they'll use a recruiter because they don't get the difference yet, that they don't grow. So Work Insight is designed for recruiters, absolutely, and it's designed for recruiters, and especially recruiters who want to do more with businesses, but also with the growing companies, because you can start advertising their openings on Work Insight, costs you nothing, and you're making money. That's the That's the bottom line. And that way we're going to grow the economy, because otherwise it's just going to be the Fortune 1000 or Fortune 2000 that grow. And all these great ideas that we need to save the world are going to stay hidden because no one can afford to staff them.
Well, and you know, I wasn't involved when Monster launched. It was kind of like a thing where when I started recruiting. But I remember like LinkedIn, like, it was like everybody come here, come here. And then now it's like some of the recruiting packages are 10 plus K a month now.
And it's a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a business. And Work Insight's going to be a business. The difference is, it's like your television. You can buy cable and have all these wonderful things every week or every night you want to watch TV, or you can just plug your TV down, stick your antenna up, and what's free comes in. And that's ad supported. Even the stuff on cable is ad supported. So this will be ad supported. We'll put stuff in the marketplace, put podcasts like yours, we're going to put DSPs stuff. There's a whole bunch of people have been talking, and some of it'll be free and some of it you pay for. But if you don't need, you don't pay for it. In the meantime, you're still putting your jobs up. And we built an aggregator because we built the first aggregator. God, we built it in '99. Kevin said it's impossible. I said, oh, come on. This is when news groups were around. Nobody's even heard of news groups anymore. That's how. Yeah. But we aggregated the news groups. And right now, Work Insight's been up and running for a year and a half, and it's gone through 17.4 million jobs. No job on Work Insight's more than 10 days old. So the stuff's all fresh. So it's not like the candidates are going to come in and apply and be disappointed. In fact, the candidates, when they come in, we give them the option. This is kind of cool, I think. We give them two things. One, we've built it with the same security ideas, principles in mind as Bumble. All right. Candidates come in, they're fully secure. You put your name and all this kind of stuff in, that's fine. No one's going to know who you are because we don't publish it. No one's going to know who you are until they've read your profile and said, God, I want to talk to Ben. So they got to push a button and go, Ben, I got this job. And you have the option of going, yes, or what? Tell me more, or no. And they'll never know. So you can come once as a candidate. You can come once, you can post your stuff, and you're there for life. You don't have to worry about your employer finding. You don't have to worry about being called 50,000 times by insurance companies. Nothing wrong with insurance companies. But you know what I mean, right?
Oh my God, I know exactly. I remember like years ago when I was like actually job searching in between jobs, that was the absolute worst thing where I'd show up to an interview and I'm like, wait, this is just
switch.
Yeah, I was like, really? Like, man, I'm like, I took off for lunch for this.
Yeah. And the other thing that we did for candidates is we teamed up with a company called Great People Inside. Most people have probably had a DISC assessment. Well, the people that started Great People Inside about 15 years ago, a lot of them used to be at DISC. DISC is now owned by my publishing company, Wiley, not my publishing company, people I publish with. And they set up Great People Inside. So now as a candidate goes in, they say, hey, you want to take a psych assessment? Because where we're going is we're trying to teach both companies and individuals how to line themselves up correctly. Now, most people have heard the expression, hired for skills, fired for fit. Yeah. And we all go, shouldn't be that way. Yeah, we've all said that for 40 years. No one's ever done anything about it. We did. You just get tired of this shit, right? Eventually you got to step up and stop complaining and do something about it. So now when a candidate comes in and they're, flipping all their stuff, they can say, okay, I want to take a psych assessment. It's free. So they take a psych assessment and it comes back and it says, Ben, you're this kind of person. So you should be looking for this kind of role. Eventually you'll be able to come to Work Insight, take the assessment, and it'll say, Ben, you're a mauve. Your color, the companies you're looking for are color-coded mauve because they've taken the assessment, right? So you should be looking for mauve companies. So look for all the mauve companies and then look for something that you want to do inside those companies. That's coming. But in the meantime, I just finished writing it sounds onerous, but it's not really. It's a 40-page guide. Here are the 21 questions you should ask a company. Based on their answers, here are the 5 types of culture that those companies represent. And by the way, here's the 6th one. Here's the toxic culture, how to identify it. So I've asked those 21 questions, depending on how the interviewer, whether it's in an interview or in a pre-interview, answers those questions, you can go, I want to work for them, or, oh no, those are losers. Click next, because you don't want to waste time. You know, the average American now takes 38 weeks to find a job. 38 weeks. 38 weeks. That's not so bad, kind of. Except the average job now in America lasts 24 months. Christ, who's ever going to be able to do anything, right? And the churn is still 24, 25, 24.5%. So it's 51 million employment transactions a year, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. I'm an economist. I got a degree in stats. I follow this shit. It's only boring to everybody but me.
Hey, David, I think that's why I like you so much, is because my degree's in economics also.
Oh, yes. Later in stats.
So that's a side note. Sorry, guys.
He'll delete all this. Don't worry about it.
Actually, maybe I won't. So at least on the YouTube channel, most of it stays on there. So like the good stuff is typically, it just stays on there. But yeah, no. But yeah, okay. So Work Insight, it's going to be free for recruiters. What is the website's address? Just so you can say it one more time.
www.work,
Mhm.
and then insight, insight.io.
Okay. So .io.
.com. They want $60,000 for the .com. Keep it. I let it go years.
And that's the thing. Like, you know, back in the day, .coms used to be like super important. Now, like io.ai, .this, .that, just as good.
Now, .io is going to be fine. And, you know, I'm just finishing up some training with DSP. And I'm about to learn how to take, because I've written a lot. And I probably have 1,000 articles, blog posts that I've written for job hunters that go out under GM for JH, Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters, or mynewjobhunt.com, and now Work Insight. And I've just written about 50 more. So I'm going to use ChatGPT to learn, to teach it how I think and how I write, and go in and go, okay, well, this is a big, long 3,000 word piece. I think people would like it in 500 word bites. Here, ChatGPT, take it apart for them. Boom. Out it goes.
Technology's crazy, right?
It's a great tool. Talking to a guy, someone was asking me a while ago, what did you do before, Google and LinkedIn? And I went, we worked. We really, really worked. I mean, we had an assignment. I'll give you an example. I got a construction company years ago, and I'm hiring the director of MIS for a whole bunch of reasons. They just screwed this thing up. So I needed to find someone that understood AS400s. I had to go to the library, deal with my favorite librarian, Susie, and said, here's my problem. How do I find out where I get this information? She took me through some association stuff, and we found a list that I could buy so that I could say, okay, list holder, I need to buy a list of all of the directors or managers or VPs of technology and all the firms in the 514-613-416 area code, please. And they sent it to me. It was about $2,000. This is like 92 or 93. And then I literally kind of pick up the phone because the email hadn't even been invented, really, literally. So pick up the phone and phone. So what did I do before LinkedIn and Google? Work. Now, anybody can be found. Not everybody can be talked to. That's a whole different subject, right? Now people spend as much time hiding as they do trying to be found. It's a whole another conversation. Sorry, I diverted. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's a perfect version. I mean, it is kind of funny now. It's like, with technology, like all these Chrome extensions, like we literally have access to every single person in the world, almost. But now it's just, you have to make, here's a question for you. Now that we have access to every single person in the world, almost, how do you get past the noise and actually have those conversations?
Oh, that's a great question. So what level of detail do you want? You want just
top of your head. Top of your head.
The funniest one I ever did, or strangest one I ever did, was years ago. I had to hire a chief revenue officer for a software company. where I had already liberated the president of Motorola data from Motorola and brought him to this company. And now I needed a chief revenue officer. So there's a guy I wanted. His name was Rick Crutchlow. Great guy. Rick Crutchlow was the first bag carrying sales rep for a tiny little company that was a pimple on a gnat's ass called Oracle. And that was like 8 years in his past. And I wanted to talk to this guy, but I knew people that knew him, and he was the most arrogant son of a bitch. I mean, way worse than me, if you can imagine, right? I thought about this for about a day and a half, and then I phoned up and left him a voicemail. And I thought I was going to leave him a voicemail. And I said, hey, Mr. Crutchlow, my name's David Perry. He says, and I'm just phoning to apologize. He says, so I'm going to swear, right? This is a quote. He says, fuck are you? I don't even know who you are. What are you apologizing for? I said, well, that's the reason I'm calling. I'm a recruiter. I got to talk to you about a role, or I want to talk to you about a role, but I don't know you. And I apologize for that because I've been around forever, right? I mean, Moses and I were same boat at the time, right? And I said, so you don't know me. And I don't know who you are, but I've never had a proper introduction. So I'm just wanting to apologize. And he said, fuck you. Want to have coffee? I said, okay. Boom. And 2 months later, he comes over to the other company, and hiring him allowed me to pull a Chamberlain moment or a Gretzky moment. All of a sudden, I got Rich Crutchlow. He was the CEO of Oracle Canada. And I ran around town and said, hey, look what we're doing, man. What are you doing? I can't tell you. I can't tell you what we're doing, but you should come talk to us. That's how we recruited the rest of the team.
Right? That's awesome.
Oh, it was fun. And we're still friends. We're very good friends.
That's all. That's phenomenal. So, well, here's a question for you. Like, you have your hands in a lot of pots, like writing books, job hunt. But we've had conversations. You really don't do any business development. Everything's like inbound.
So, yes, and that's not quite true about the business development. Now, do I do MPC calls? Yes, I used to do a lot. I mean, they wouldn't believe the 16. So I wrote this down last night. If they wouldn't believe the 1,600 searches, they sure as hell wouldn't believe my January 1988. My January 1988, I placed 29 people. I was so disappointed. I was going for one a day. I wasn't doing one a day. I was doing like 2 in a day and whatever. But that was my best month ever. 29 placements, and that year I billed $758,000.
Nice.
Well, nice. Minimum wage in Canada at that time was, I think, $2.75.
Okay.
And for that, I took 52 grand home. That's what made me quit, right? Just getting screwed here. I gotta quit. That's a whole nother story. Anyway, sorry, you got me off top.
It was the kind of the question was like, you have your hands in a lot of different pots. Because of that, like, is a lot of stuff like coming to you?
A lot of stuff is, and it's because I spent time establishing my foundation. So I was trying to figure out how to cement this quickly to your audience. And if it works with you, it'll work with everybody that's listening. Are you familiar? Have you ever watched the series The Lincoln Lawyer?
So I've seen the first season, but not the second season.
By the way, the second season, phenomenal. I just finished watching it. It was so good that my wife hadn't seen the first season. I took her back to watch the first season. She loved it. So what's The Lincoln Lawyer got to do with us? Well, anyone that watched The Lincoln Lawyer knows that he was pretty much a good lawyer, but nowhere, nothing, until he did something spectacular. I'm not going to take it away from anybody. And then it's all about, what did you do spectacular? And that's how he built his reputation. And the rest comes for that. So I'm Canadian. I live in Ottawa. I mean, exciting town. No, I'm from Montreal. Okay. So I take that credit. But I learned a long time ago that the most successful recruiters in Ottawa were the assholes from Toronto with a PowerPoint. Literally, I found that out one night listening to guys in a bar. And so I became the asshole from Ottawa with a PowerPoint in Toronto and Montreal. And I did a lot of business development, made a lot of presentations. I started writing articles for a tech newspaper back in 1994. And I did one every 2 weeks, one for employers, one for candidates, one for employers, one for candidates. That became my first book, The One for Candidates. So I've done a lot of establishing the foundation. And that's what I thought we'd talk about today. People want to, you know, people want to live any kind of life that's of their own choosing. They need to be in demand, so people are calling them and they're saying, oh, well, really? No, I get you're going to pay the fee, but why other than that? I got a lot of people to choose from. Why other than, paying me a 33% fee, should I be doing business with you? And I started saying that like 25, 30 years ago. And that's been the thing ever since. So people call us because in the news, very few recruiters, actually, I don't know any other recruiters that have been on the part of the cover story for Fortune magazine. Seriously. Got lucky, but really wasn't. It was hard work. I went from my local newspaper with a press release that I wrote because I read guerrilla marketing. I read guerrilla marketing when I first started. My marketing budget for the year was $20 or 25, can't remember. And this book was 15, so I bought the book and blown it, right? And Jay, Conrad Levinson, who wrote the book, said, start small, do a press release. So I did the press release, it got published. That press release I used to do the next one and the next one and the next one. So I went local all through all the stuff locally. I went local business newspaper, then I went to regular newspaper, then I did radio here, then I did television here, news. And then that got the attention of the people in Toronto, big newspapers, and did the ones in Toronto. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting people calling me. I mean, you're familiar with Haro, right? Help a reporter out?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So I knew the guy when he first started. I probably had 20 or 30 people. And we had this long conversation one day. And I said, listen, I'm going to put in my book, Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters. And I did for job hunters. And all of a sudden, he's got thousands and tens of thousands of people who are hooking up and becoming members of Haro, Help a Reporter Out, because I told them it was good for their job search to be found. It's easier to be found than it is to get someone else to answer the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the principle I've always worked with. We do whatever we need to be found and found. I said, I just finished the stuff with DSP, David C. Patterson, because he's got techniques and tactics and a fresh look at stuff that I haven't seen before. So we signed up, paid a lot of money. I'm sure it's all going to be worth it. And now we're learning to be even more omnipresent than I was before. And I'm doing this because I'm getting ready I brought my son into the business. He's been in it for 5 years. He did his first search by himself from start to finish because I was away. I think we were in Ireland giving a speech. Came back and I talked to the client, thanking them for letting him do the search. And I wasn't very far away. And they said, well, we want to work with him, not you.
That's good.
Kind of. So, a lot of the stuff we're doing now is laying the foundation for when second generation kicks in. But it's the same principles, being found for the stuff that we're great at.
So you literally you've pumped out articles. You've got yourself in front of news organizations. You've got yourself in front of industry events. You've got yourself in front of entire industry communities for years. That has paid the dividends. And I think that's what I was trying to dial into a little bit is all the stuff that you've done behind the scenes is what has helped create a nice influx. You don't really call it business development, but it is part of the farming side of business development.
It really is a farming side. It's easier for me and Anita, my partner and wife, because we're quite genuine people. We have a Christmas party. We used to have Christmas parties. We stopped about 8 years ago. Long story, doesn't matter. But we'd have Christmas parties and we'd have, 150, 180 people at the house. The house can accommodate that easily. Well, yeah, no, easily. No one's pushing and shoving. But every year we'd have 20, 25 clients come out to the Christmas party. Even half of them are Jewish. And they come out to the Christmas party, even though it was a Christmas party and I refused to say holiday party. Anyway, long story. But at the same time, we would invite half a dozen or a dozen candidates that we knew were in between opportunities. Tell you the number of deals that got made at the Christmas party, right? People called me the next day, the first time this happened. I had a good friend. I just hired a new CEO for him. he called me and he said, listen, I met this guy Blake last night at the party and I want to hire him. I said, hey, that's great. He's a great guy, blah, 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 blah. So, well, how much do I owe you? I said, he said, well, what do you mean? He said, listen, you met him at the Christmas party. I said, he's in between opportunities. I placed this guy twice, so I know he's solid gold. Hire him. He owe me nothing. If you feel guilty about it, good. And, give money, give a donation to the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario. I said, there, that'll assuage your guilt. But I want nothing out of it. That's not why we have Christmas parties. We have Christmas parties because we invite people we love that we really appreciate.
And so
It's going on for decades.
like putting on events, like it's what I want the listeners to catch is, I know you have to put in the work. You have to like the calls, the emails, the LinkedIn messages, but there are so many things that are outside of the box of just the cookie cutter ways to develop business and develop candidates. Then like there are so many things you could do. And I think, David, you're a great example of, writing books, being in articles, being in the news, putting yourself out there. And, I think that's one thing also recruiters, including myself, need to get a little better at. Like you're sitting there talking about publishing like a news brief or like, when something great happens, like we need to also celebrate our wins so that way people know what the hell's going on too. So those wins could be found.
Now, let's face it, right now the economy is in flux. I've been here, I don't know how many times. And what you need to focus on is, in my opinion, is not yourself. You need to focus on candidates. If you focus on, so people say, are you candidate centric or employer centric? And I say, yes, because I'm talent centric, right? And sometimes talent is in between opportunities. So we'll talk about that in a second if you want to. But what people could be doing that will set themselves up for the future and will bring them revenue with a small delay, maybe a delay of 30, 60 days. Some people can handle that, some people can't. Different circumstances. But what I would be doing, and I learned this from Scott Love, actually gave away his tactic. Do you know Scott?
Oh, I had him on actually recently published the episode with them. We actually, if you want a good laugh, me and Scott actually live about 15 minutes apart. So we occasionally grab drinks and just chat.
So he wrote this piece that he sold years ago. It's about a 200-page, how-to book. And there are 3 pages inside it where he talks about and gives you the script on how to approach your industry association and let them know that you're an expert and you're here to help. And you want to write a roundup article. Okay, and a roundup article is where it's an association for blonde-haired, left-handed coders. Okay, so that's the association. So you call this person, you talk to them and say, listen, I'm going to do this article on leadership or on whatever, because I'm a recruiter. And I'd like to interview some of your, and if I use their quotes in the article, because I'm publishing this article, then I will give affirmation, all that kind of stuff. Well, the head of business development for the association, even the CEO is going, yes, I can help my clients, right? So they paved the way for you to go and talk to these people. And now, I've been doing this decades. But now with the internet, you can go and interview someone, do a roundup article, or you can farm the work out, right? I hate writing. I do my own, but I hate it. I'm not good at it. Not the first draft anyway. So you can get the article done and give it to the people that you've interviewed. Well, you think they're going to stick it in their drawer and tell no one? No. And as long as you don't make the mistake of finishing the interview and saying, oh, by the way, you got any needs? Don't do that, because it'll ruin you. And it talks about this. The business will come back to you. Full stop. And you don't have to wait to do it with an association. You can just write the article, call a couple people up and tell them, I'm writing an article, which is true because you're writing an article. And then write the article, quote them in it, and boom. And they're going to send it to all their friends. And what you get is, we'll use AECOM for a good example, because they're a client. You do something with the CEO or one of the presidents from AECOM, and you not only get AECOM as a client, a repeat client, but you get all the suppliers. You get all the people. I mean, right now what we want is people, right? So everybody that works there that reads this, because the CEO sent it to everybody, all of a sudden they go, oh, I know who that guy is. If I ever get in trouble, I'm going to call that guy. They file it. So all of a sudden, they decide they're going to change businesses? Well, if they're an A player, that's what we get paid to do, figure out what the A players are. If they're an A player and they call you, it's not a lot of effort to come up with 5 or 10 companies that can probably use this A player, pick up the phone. I have a very specific MPC call I make. It's quite a bit more than a call, and I'm not going to talk about it because it's quote, it's secret, not even in the new book, kind of hidden, not really. But I can pick up the phone and call 5 or 10 companies and have conversations with all the CEOs. 2 years ago, I did an MPC. I did we called what's called a Rainmaker program, and I sent out a mess. Actually, I sent a letter. I sent a letter to 10 chairmen of the board. You hiring greatness. You know what I did there, right? This is just the reverse. And 7 of them called me back. 2 of them called me Christmas Day, Benjamin. And one of them, I could hear his wife yelling at him. He says, it's a $7 billion company. He says, David, I got to go. I can't. They're in the next room and they're yelling. Go. But, so everything you do to make to help candidates. I mean, that's why Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters was originally written. It was a PR. I call it a PR stunt. It wasn't really. It was me trying to help people so they wouldn't call me, for God's sake. We only had 4 phone lines, and these people kept calling me because Nortel had done this massive layoff, right? Just didn't want to talk to them, but I couldn't be rude. So that's how, Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters book came about. And now, if I'm making a call and I'm calling a candidate, I don't introduce myself, blah, blah, blah. Headhunters. Hey, Ben, David Perry. I'm the author of Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters. So when I say that, in that sub-second, they go, well, okay, I've heard of that. What the hell is he calling me for? So the walls go down, and now they want information. And then I'll say, and I'm also, the managing partner at Perry Martell International, which is an executive search firm that specializes in blah, blah. That's why I'm calling you, frankly. You got a minute? Of course they do. No one says no.
Yeah, no. And so, and real quick, David is an incredible writer. I've actually read some of his books, but shut up, David. Shut up. But as I read some of his books, I've learned a ton from his books, but I just want to chime in. Like, if you suck at writing, like me, one of the things that you could do is set up a podcast for your industry. And here's the cool thing about a podcast. It's evergreen content that people just somehow keep on finding, but you can also utilize AI tools or hire somebody to cut up the video. Like, there's some AI tools like Opus Pro and Get Much, where you literally just drop the video in. It uses AI to pick out hot topics, cuts those videos for social media. And so the people that are on the podcast, the leaders, you can give companies love having their people on a podcast because it is a way for them to get additionally noticed. People love talking, but now you have technology that you can also give them too, where they can actually go and promote themselves, but you're just in the background as the guy that just asked the questions.
That's so smart. I have 7 friends. Oh, there's 7 friends now. Who would be 7 friends? No, I have 7 friends that I've helped write books with. 5 of them are New York Times bestsellers. And the way I did it was I met them, most of them, quite accidentally. And I said, "Listen, it was a great presentation. Did you record it?" "Oh, no, I would have recorded it." Because if you give a 45-minute presentation live, it works out when you have a transcript to about 5,000 words. So if you're thinking that you've got enough information and maybe you've got 10 different topics, well, record it and you've got 10 chapters of a book. So that's one thing I do with friends. And then I always say, if you want to write a book, if you're really serious about it, you got to go out and buy this. Hold on. Got to go out and buy this. I got it right here. I get it out in time. Of course I can. Anyway, I'll bring it. This, you got to go buy a pack. I can't pull the pack out because my fingers are too fat. Yeah, it's exactly. So you buy that, and when you have an idea, a thought that you think should go in a book, you write it down and you throw it in a box or a drawer. I said, and eventually you're going to get up and not have any more thoughts. Never. But you call me and we sit down and we organize it all, and there's your book. All you have to do is do the joining pieces, and all of a sudden you've got a book. And you don't write a book. I'll give you some real news. You don't write a book to make money off the book. There's Hiring Greatness is behind the red one. Hiring Greatness, when it came out in January of 2016, we wrote $380,000 in new business that month because the book came out. I didn't even know these people, for Christ's sake, but somebody knew somebody who gave them the book over Christmas. They thought it was great, and they referred their friend to it. Only read the first chapter, and they said, "I got to call this guy." $380,000 later, ka-ching. So you're not going to get rich like Stephen King, because my stuff is not that interesting to read. But it is a business. It is a business card. It's a business tool. And when we had new clients, we're on holidays for a month, and we had a new client, a prospect, and they wanted to know if we're any good. He actually asked that question. I said, "I don't know. That's my clients." I said, "Let's have a conversation. I'll send you a proposal." And then when I'm finished with having this conversation, I'll send you a copy of one of my books. Oh, great. So finish the conversation, sent the proposal. Proposal's 26 pages. By the time you finish reading this thing, you're either bored spitless or you know that we can do this. But I sent him the book, and he got the book 3 days later. He called me up and I said, "Did you read the proposal?" He said, "No. It's 200 pages, right?" He said, or the proposal was 26 pages. He said, "But I know you can do this." I said, "Great." So he's actually read the book now, because I said, after we had the first meeting, I said, "We're about to take you through pain, Bill." I said, because everything we talked about, when you talked about how you did what you did and why you got the results that you got, and now you have to do it again, how much it's cost you. I said, you got to change all that. That's going to be painful, because we're going to take you out of your, some of your bad habits. You're a great presenter. You're a great talker. But A, you're not asking the right questions. And B, you're talking. We need candidate. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to advertise this role. We're going to make a list of the top 50 people that can do this role, and I'm going to phone them up, introduce myself, take them through a conversation, and in that conversation of 5 minutes, I can tell you whether or not they're qualified. I know they're qualified because we did the research, but I can tell you whether or not they have the right psychic profile, DNA, to work with you and do the job. He said, "Really?" I said, "Call the references in the proposal. I won't ask again. I expect it to happen. And I'll know if you don't, because one of them is going to call me to tell me. If not one of them, one of them will, all four of them do. They're going to call me to tell me, and they're going to tell me how good your questions were. So if you don't call them, I don't think we're going to do business, because if you can't do that, you're not going to do any of the rest of the hard work." So he did.
And like the deal got solidified because he wrote a book, and a book is like the new calling or the new business card almost.
And so not only will I get his business, and we'll do it well, but I will get his customers or his partners' business as well. And that's what recruiters have to think about. It's like playing pool. Anybody can sink. I took Corey, my son, to prove this point. We went out with friends, father-son thing with other friends. And, I've always talked, I play pool. I play well. I always talk about it's not sinking the first ball. It's setting it up so you can sink the whole table. So we're playing this game, and I'm a pretty good pool player. And he's laughing at me because, I'm missing shots and I'm only sinking one. And this goes on for 2 or 3 games. We lose. As a team, we lose. We won one. And he's really rubbing it in. And Mike goes, "One more game?" I said, "Absolutely. All or nothing," right? So I broke, and I cleared the table. And then Corey goes, "Oh, yeah. Oh." I mean, getting the first deal, yeah, that's important. But getting the first deal is not as important as setting up the second and the third and the fourth, getting their partners. And that's what it's all about. One customer can bring, a deal or two, but really one customer can bring another dozen clients, because they're all in this boys club or girls club, whatever you want to call it. But friends want to brag that they got a great recruiter. They'll only tell their friends. I mean, we've got, like, I don't know, 100 testimonials on the website, Perry Martell. We've done 1,600 projects. Okay, so some of them are multiple projects, but the secret to being a good recruiter, in my opinion, is understanding your place. If you're a Star Trek fan, you'll get it. I'm Riker. I'm Riker, not Picard. I'm the number 2. I'm in the background. I'm making sure that you got a vision, you got a dream. I'm going to help you achieve the dream. I'm going to hit your targets. You're going to take credit for it. That's one of the big secrets that people don't quite get. Within the next 6 months, you'll see all the case studies on our website. We'll scrub. I mean, the clients have given us permission to have their names up there, but we're going to scrub the names. Okay, because a couple of them have gotten calls from other recruiters saying, hey, I know you use. Fantastic. I would do the same thing. But he didn't get the sales. I was proud. That's thinking. That's guerrilla.
Awesome.
Sorry.
No, this is perfect. This is why I wanted you on the podcast, to sit there and talk about the stuff that not every recruiter is thinking about. Many times we are so transactional with what we're doing. It's like, got this, on to the next one. What if we go a bit deeper? So that way, increase the experience, increase what we're doing, where one client can turn into 12. So, but yeah, let's jump into some of the questions that we had from, some of the listeners and from the Facebook group.
Give me your best shot.
So
I'll just unplug.
What does your team look like?
My team, on a team will search myself, Anita, and Corey. And then we've got researchers that we have on contract. We've had the same group of, 9 to 10 researchers for decades. Most of them were librarians, by the way, because that's where the research comes from. We didn't always have Zoom Info. Guys, in fact, I was the second customer of Zoom Info ever when they were Ilion Technologies. In fact, the old chair, the old CEO, will tell you that the actual idea came. I met these guys in Chicago at a trade fair. I'm going through the trade fair. This guy tries to sell me this little machine that read business cards. Didn't I need this to take all my business cards and get them read in so I could put them in my database? I said, yeah, it's kind of cool, but I got secretaries for that. I said, it would be cooler if you could whack this thing, the web. If you could just whack the web and collect all that shit. So about 3 months later, I get this phone call and I become a beta tester. I'm either number 1 or number 2 beta tester. Years later, back in 2008, I had talked about Zoom Info on the Wall Street Journal TV cast, and it crashed their servers. They didn't know I was going to talk about it, but crashed their servers because I said, if you're not on Zoom Info, you don't exist. Well, so the next day, a couple times apparently, the CEO calls me up and he says, hey, listen, this is what happened. And I said, oh, sorry about that. I said, but I got a new book coming out. It's going to happen again because I mentioned you guys in the book. And he said, well, what can we do? I said, I don't know. So 2 days later, he calls back and says, we're hiring a PR guy for you. He says, we're hiring the PR guy and he's going to do the PR so long as you keep talking about Zoom Info. I said, I will, because it's a great service. I mean, brilliant. I mean, they had maybe 2 million people on the database at that point. In fact, they came out with a special tool just for the book, which ended up becoming the community edition. So if you were a job hunter and you had read Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunting 2.0, you could go to Zoom Info and sign up, and they would let you use it for free for 10 or 15. It was either days or searches or whatever, but it was a way for job hunters to find the people that they needed to talk to. So that's what happened with Zoom Info. And why am I telling you this? I apologize.
Yeah, well, I think I want to kind of dial in. So you have a team of researchers.
Yes. So the team. So here's what happens, right? We're on vacation, and actually the client is about an hour and a half drive from where we work. So we went and met him, and his team asked the questions, came back, and I said, written the profile yet? It's almost done, but it's got to be. Here's where I need the research done, and it's going to take me a couple weeks to get this stuff out of CEO so that I could go out with the profile. So I tell Corey what I need. He picks the researcher. And so what the researcher does is go out and find me the names, titles, phone numbers, email address, to the best of their ability, of every single person in this geographic area in that vertical and produces a list that gets put into Vincere, and it pops up on my screen. Got 3 screens. Pops up on my screen, and I called them all. I introduced myself, and I don't think I have had anybody hang on that 10 or 12 years, because I always say, hey, my name's Dave. I'm the author of Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters. I'm also the managing partner of Perry Martell International, which is boom. And I want to talk to you. You got a couple minutes.
Okay. So you have it, and I love this because you have a team of people that do the research so that way you could spend the time actually having the conversations.
My time is optimized. And then people say, tell me about the job. And I say, no. I said, I do not have the verbal acuity. I'll say it over and over again. I don't have the verbal acuity to do justice to this role. What? I got a 7-page overview. Happy to ship it to you. Oh, great. Out it goes. And this, by the way, this is detailed. All of this is detailed on our website in a brochure called the Inside Out Approach. Anybody can download it and for free. And I know many recruiters who call me after things like this say, are you sure? I'm absolutely sure. Skip Freeman and I, do you know Skip?
No.
Great. He's written a couple of good books. What I publish, use it, for God's sake. Because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. All the people that have gone before me, I'm standing on their shoulders. Help yourself to my stuff. So I send them, I said, listen, I can't, none of the verbal acuity to do justice. I'm going to send you a 7-page overview, and you read it. You got some quiet time? Call me back and tell me why you're interested, or, how I missed the mark by a country mile. And they laugh, and I send it.
Well, okay. So that's ready to jump into another question I have. So let's take a pause on that. What does your typical day look like as a big biller?
I do everything that closes on money that day, first thing.
Okay.
All the calls to candidates, all the calls to the clients, any difficult conversations I have to have are out of the way. My day normally starts when I'm really slacking, 8 o'clock. So that's a typical day. I'll get all the hard shit out of it. And then I'm typically following up conversations to set coffee meetings, set appointments. And then if I have time left over, I will have conversations with candidates who I know are great, that love their jobs, that I'm not going to need to move for anywhere from 6 months to a couple of years. And that's my day.
Awesome.
Close the deal. I send it to Anita. She bills them. And Corey calls the research team and says, thank you very much. And on to the next one.
So another question I have is, what does and you said you kind of have this on your website for recruiters to kind of take a look at, but what does your process look like from client outreach to closing that placement? Include like the researcher talk and all that stuff.
Okay. So by the way, everything is in that brochure. It's 8 pages, 3 minutes to read. You got everything. Outreach is typically nowadays, so there's 2 ways. I'm either answering a question or answering a phone call, because someone phoned and said, hey, we heard about you we'd like to talk to you. And then it's a phone call. Hey, Ben, David Perry, I'm returning your call. You heard about me from so-and-so. What can I do for you? What's the best use of the next 5 minutes of your time? Now, when's the last time a recruiter said, what's the best use of 5 minutes of your time? Because if a recruiter gets a prospect on the phone, he just wants to get a job order. No, I want to save my time. If the guy says, well, I'm not really sure. I said, well, then, either we, let's take a couple minutes to talk about why you're not sure. Or you can call me back when you are. It's my time. It's all I sell, right? And, I got this ruthless after the stroke. When you have a stroke and you wake up, a couple of days later, and it takes you several years to be able to have a more than a half an hour conversation, because it did. I had 40 minutes of time that I could use to talk to clients and talk to candidates every single day. That's it. After that, I was in the fog and I was useless. So I got really ruthless, and I learned it from reading another book or another sales guide. I got ruthless about my time and the questions I asked and getting to them. And Canadians don't like people that get to the point. So I do more business with Americans than I do with Canadians. Thank God. US buck, yeah. So I'll have that conversation, or I'm going to do an NPC call, and I'll phone up, or I'll send an email. I sent one last week. I sent an email to a guy I've never met, and I said, I got a guy who's going to come off the bench in the next 3 or 4 days. He's 4x the company he's where he's at now on the assignment he's been on. That's why I call it assignment. I think you should meet him because he could do this, this, and this for your business. Are you interested? And then I detail what the fee arrangement was right there in the email, and I sent off. And he, like most people that get this kind of email or a phone call back and say, hey, thanks for thinking of us. I know we've never met, and no problem with the fee, blah, blah, blah. Great. That's all I want to know. And when I send an email, it's because in the email footer, right at the bottom of the footer are 3 or 4 of the books I printed, a link to either a Wall Street Journal article or a Time magazine or Inc. article, just below my signature and phone. So that's my typical day. If I've got an assignment, I'm going to take 5 or 6 minutes, 10, to read the research, make sure it's all lined up correctly, and then I'm on the phone. I got a headset. I got a Plantronics headset. Can't live without this thing. It's wireless. I had the first one that was wired. 25-foot extension cord. Absolutely right. And I'll make 5 calls. I'll leave 5 voicemail messages because nobody talks to anybody. So unless I've got someone's cell number, and I did this a couple weeks ago, I called the CEO I've never talked to before, and he answered that I called the cell. I said, "Oh God, I wanted to leave a voicemail." I said, "No, tell me." He said, "No, let me call back. I'll call you back in 30 seconds and I'll leave the voicemail." Why did I do that? Because I didn't want to pitch on the phone because he didn't know me. And when I'm pitching, my voice goes up about an octave. I hate it, but I can't stop it. So I said, "No, I'll call you back. Just don't answer the call." Click, boom, got his voicemail, left the message. He called me back a couple hours later, right? And we're going to continue this conversation. So that's it. I'll get through all the calls I have to make. Sometimes that'll take me half an hour. Sometimes it'll take 5 hours. But I'll sit and call and leave voicemail, call and leave voicemail. I don't automate any of that stuff. Don't automate, I don't do call drops with here's the message. Every single one of them is personalized. It's personalized. I know their name, they do, and I personalize the message that I'm going to leave. If I'm going to leave 3 paragraphs of information, the first piece is personalized as close as I can get it, and the researchers know what to do. And then I go and have lunch, and I probably do some reading or writing. The last year, I have been working on 2 books. Revolutions Need Leaders, and that is doing with a partner. And that book will be out sometime next year. I haven't chosen the publisher yet. Actually, I haven't finished writing, done his stuff. I'm the slacker. And that book, Revolutions Need Leaders, will reset the entire recruitment industry because I go really deep. It's my last book. And I'm more interested in solving a problem that we have. You can get at that anytime you want to, than maximizing money. And you know why I'm interested.
Well, actually, that kind of we're going to take a pause on the question I just asked, because it literally goes into the next question I was going to ask you. What motivates you to keep going?
I'm alive. I'm alive. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, you read the book. So you know that I was on death's door when I was living in Colorado Springs, Colorado. My father was Canadian Navy. So, of course, we got stationed at the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. Well, he was there as the only Canadians working for on loan to the U.S. government during the Vietnam War. And he was also at NORAD, just down the corner, right? And the day we arrived, next day, my mother had a heart attack, ends up in the hospital for 9 months. She's gone. They take care of her in the hospital. My sisters are flown out to Nova Scotia, and my dad's got a pretty big job there. So we lived in a cluster, and there was about 15 houses in this cluster, and I don't know how he did it, but I was not farmed out. I was taken care of by a different family every single day. I go to school, but I come home and I'd be at Johnny's house or Susie's house or whatever. They, take care of me, feed me, make sure I do my goddamn homework. And my dad would pick me up about 10 o'clock in bed. So this went on for quite a while. And then I had a heart condition that they discovered, and it was rare. And in the end, I was on C ward on the 4th floor in Denver, Colorado, with all of the rest of the terminal patients. All the Vietnam vets had multiple holes in their head from shells, their helmet off, arms missing. I made some great friends, play poker, all kinds of stuff. But what I really learned was how Americans, I may get a little crumbly here, how Americans take care at that time, and I still think they're capable of doing it, how Americans really take care of each other. I mean, seriously, like never seen in the whole world. And we travel all over the world, you know that. So I'm in the hospital. I'm not going to school. My dad been interviewed by the newspaper. People tell their friends all over the world, and all of a sudden I got these stamps. That's how I ended up collecting stamps. These stamps being sent in from all of the bases the U.S. has around the world to the hospital. They used to deliver envelopes or bags every day. Seriously, I'm 10 years old when I go in. I'm 11 when I come out. They did the heart operation, but it was Richard Nixon's cardiologist. They flew from Washington to Denver to do, and there's a whole bunch of like 100+ surgeons in attendance in this auditorium as they did this thing. Obviously, I lived. It was the first time the operation had ever been done in North America. Lived. My point is, why do I do it? Because I'm alive and I have debt. I mean, they took care of me. They took care of my family. We stayed for 3.5 years, almost became an American citizen, that close. Dad got a medal from Nixon. They sent him home. This is before he had his crash. A medal from Trudeau when he got back. And for me, it's always been payback. But what has been trying to do my part to get America back to what I experienced. Because, I'm there with another family 7 days a week for almost a year, every single day, besides doing homework and all that kind of stuff. On the weekends, I don't watch cartoons. Oh, God, no. There's so many evangelical Pentecostals that I got stuck with, or that I stayed with. And they stick them in a car, big, long station wagon that, you think the Lincoln is long? These station wagons, they were built like, Humvees, right? And we'd go out and we'd erect school or paint a barn or dig ditches or pick up. I did that for 2 years. Oh, sorry about that. This is not going to, let me try and turn it off. That's what I lived. And I loved it. You come back to Canada, we don't have that kind of camaraderie. Canadians like to, don't get me wrong, I love Canadians too. Canadians like to talk about how different they are from Americans. Really? We're not. And we're not better. I hope no Canadians see this podcast. But really, Americans know how to take care of each other. They've been doing it for 250 years. It was the great experiment that's still going on. And push comes to shove, you all rally around the flag and it gets shit done. So what I'm hoping with doing Work Insight, my new job hunt, is that I can get people back to having time. So people land a job that they get to keep, or they're in control of their life, so that people can turn around and start to help solve bigger problems in the world. That's where we're headed. That's my payback. So why do I do what I do? That's it. And that's what I put in the epilogue of Hiring Greatness. I mean, you read it, so you know it's there. That answer the question?
Perfectly.
And I'm so pride I at that. Emotional when I talk.
Well, let's jump over to the action side of the podcast, the quick fire questions. And I know these are questions I've asked you before, but even if it's the same advice, let's fire. And what advice would you give to a brand new recruiter that's just starting off in this industry this year?
Go and write 5 pieces of help aimed at candidates and 5 pieces aimed at recruiters. Don't have a blog. start one and put up, here's 10 ways to assess a new job, or 3 things you have to do to make sure your resume is read by recruiters. Write those articles and publish them. If you have to do it on a blog, great. If you can push them out through a community newspaper, all the better.
And
if you're a new recruiter, you have to give before you get. Full stop.
And if you don't have a blog set up, you can also on LinkedIn write articles.
And write it, and you don't have to worry about SEOing it. If it's a good article and it's helpful, and you put a couple of hashtags at the back, it's not hard to figure out what the hashtags are, folks. People will find you, and you give before you get. You give before you get.
I think that's actually a great piece of advice. I wrote a article about the cleared search probably 3.5 years ago, maybe coming on 4 years ago. I had, companies reach out to me from it. And I finally asked the company, I was like, hey, why'd you reach out? I literally said, it was like, hey, why'd you guys reach out to me? What's going on? And they're like, well, this article that you wrote is the number one trending article if you search this in Google. And I'm like, oh, okay.
You did the right thing. You had zero expectation probably, but you did the right thing. I mean, writing career guide for the high-tech professionals and writing guerrilla marketing for job hunters, they were stunts, really, because they were designed to get people to stop calling me. I've only got 4 phone lines and you're jamming me. But it took off on its own. And when I did guerrilla marketing, the first edition, I wrote the whole book. I sat back and I said, no one's going to believe me. No one's going to believe me. So that's when I reached out, and that know me. I reached out to the recruitment community and said, I read your article about this. It'd be really good in my book. I wrote this. I think yours is better. So every single one of these books, the 3 editions, have had my stuff pulled and other people's stuff put in. Now, don't get excited, folks. If a book's got 95,000 words in it, 90,000 of them are mine. So nobody else wrote my book. What? I gave everybody credit. Rayanne Thorne, Shally Steckrell, Jim Durbin, just hundreds and hundreds of people. Well, hundreds and hundreds. Probably 100 recruiters over the last 3 editions have put stuff in the book, and it's brought them business, brought them notoriety. More power to it. In fact, I actually wrote a guide for guerrilla, for people that participated in that. I wrote a guide. Here's how you promote your piece in the book so that you get on the radio, so that you get more advertising. And I don't care if they sell books. I think I make 28 cents every time someone buys a book. Whoopee. No, seriously. And in fact, the last 2 editions, I took no advance. I said to the publisher, I said, forget the advance. Here's your $20,000 back. I want a better rate. And Jay called me. He said, you insane? Because 50% of the advance is his, right? I said, Jay, the book sells. We make a fortune. He goes, and my agent was bananas because he's used to getting his piece for the advance. But we got essentially 5x in terms of percentage back from what we would have normally gotten. And I took the book to drag people to the website, Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters, gm4gh.com. And we sold stuff on that site. Well, I sold 21,000 people I didn't know stuff, from a $9 audio to $1,000, actually $1,900 job search package. So that's how you end up getting multiple streams of income. Talked about this before. This is why we do it. Do something once. And now it's even easier with AI, especially this. You do something once, you recast it, reformat it, and send it out. I'm looking forward to that. I got 1 million words in print. I got the bananas.
The second DSP actually talked about his AI program. The first person I thought about was you. Awesome. Next question. What advice would you give to an experienced recruiter that wants to continue to have success?
Give before you get. Again, especially an experienced recruiter, and a bunch of the people that are probably going to listen to this podcast are experienced recruiters, and I know them well. And they're going, yep. now is the time, if you're an expert, whatever, to meet with association presidents, to meet with principals of schools, whatever, university, and go, okay, here's my expertise. Put me on stage. Let me write an article. Expect nothing for it other than if you speak, do yourself a favor and pay $1,000 and grab a videographer. If you're on stage, wherever you go, grab a videographer and have them capture. And if you're on stage and you can't afford to do that, get a digital recorder and record it, because you can use that information over and over again. When Kevin Donlin and I used to speak, because Kevin Donlin and I did talks all over North America, from New York to San Francisco, and we on stage together at the same time. Never been done. I did that because the first speech was in Detroit. It was shortly after I'd had my stroke. Nobody knew about the stroke. I mean, not quite true, but that's another story. But I wasn't sure I could stand for more than 20 minutes and talk. So I asked Kevin to come with me. So we did. And what we ended up doing was we ended up quite accidentally, not even splitting the slides, but he was the dry guy and I was the color commentary. And we argued and talked about 2.5 minutes. I talked for 2.5 minutes and he'd interrupt me and go, folks, what he really meant to say was. And so we've kept that up for 10 years now. And when I speak in Romania, I was in Romania with Anita. We were giving a talk from about 900 HR people, actually, and at a psychometrics conference. And we're on opposite ends of the stage. She's here, I'm here, and the audience is out here. And before we start, she goes, so she starts walking towards me. So I figured, come over and, wish me luck or give me a kiss or something. She gets here, and I lean in, and she grabs clicker. And she goes walking across the stage, and she stops in the middle. She looks out at the audience, and she says, you'll thank me for this later. Exploded. And it was so much easier to give information when people are laughing. And, and that would be the other thing I would say to, whether it's a seasoned recruiter or a new recruiter, go in and give a talk at a local chamber of commerce or school or whatever. Have your notes, but do it al fresco. Just get up there and speedball it. Just talk. Anyone who's been in this business for more than a year is an expert. The life expectancy of a recruiter is still measured in months, sub 10. Okay, the guy that I went to, the story. I opened an executive search division for a secretarial group. Got married, came back, guy fired me because 3 of my deals had closed. He owed me 50% of 84 grand. Said I got lucky, told me to fuck off and threw me out of the office. So I went home, day after my wedding. I went home, hey honey, guess what? I can paint the house. That's great. We can't afford to buy any paint. Anyway, if you've been in this business for more than a year, you're an expert. People need what you have. And people now, especially now, are in great need. So give as much as yourself as you can, and limit it. Say if I got a 60-hour week, I'm going to spend 5 hours doing this, and stick to that, because the rest of it has to be for you and your family or you and the business. But you do that, you'll see great rewards, and you'll get better and better at your craft, because people will ask you questions. I've been at places where people have asked. We play whenever I speak. We play Stump the Recruiter, and I say to people in the audience, I said, okay, we're going to play Stump the Recruiter. Ask me anything except about my sex life. Anything. Recruiting related, job search related. And if I can't answer the question, you got $50. No one's ever collected, and it's 50 US, it's real money. No one's ever collected the $50. And I had one girl stand up in San Francisco at college. And she said, well, I'm a convicted felon. And I said, kill anybody? No. But you're out now. She said, yeah. She said, well, how am I going to get a job? I said, I don't understand the question. Oh, what you going to do, you're studying this. She said, yeah. I said, so go volunteer at a couple of places, including a women's shelter. I said, well, she said, why would I do that? I said, well, it's good for your soul. But after a year, you're going to finish there and you're going to need people to be your reference. Well, the people that volunteer at women's shelters and at other organizations in cities are usually the spouses, if not usually the spouses of people that are well off. And so you're going to use them as references. No one cares what you've done as long as you didn't kill anybody. You need a good reference. These people will be your reference. So the girl turns around and looks at the two teachers who obviously put her up to this question. It's a whole big, longer story. And they went, so that's the worst I've ever had. That's the closest I came to answering the question. Boom, done. So when people do this, when you do this as a recruiter, you're going to have fun, going to get better at what you're doing. People are going to talk about you, and that's what you need. Lincoln Lawyer all over again. You need people to recognize you're an expert in something. I've given you at least 5 ways to do that today. You know, if I was listeners, I would grab all of them, put them in a list, and do the hardest one first, and then finish the list.
Do you have a favorite recruiting tech tool at the moment?
Tech. No. Does my phone count?
I think that's the perfect one.
But that's been my favorite forever. You know, we jokingly say I leave voicemail messages. There are only 2 people in the world that never been able to connect or have never returned a phone. One was the Pope. Yes, folks, it wasn't a phone call. I wrote a letter to the Pope and I made offer, no matter what it was. And he didn't call, but someone from his office did, and they followed up with a letter about 2 months later. The only other person was the former president, Trump. And this is back in 2006 or 8, I can't remember. And I simply wanted him to write the foreword for Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters 2.0. And I should have done it months earlier, but I was on deadline. I had like 6 days to get this done. And 8 calls, and finally his secretary accused me of being a stalker. And I said, forget it. I said, I'll have Darren Hardy, Success Magazine. I'll have Darren Hardy. So I phoned Darren. He said no. I said, oh, for God's sake, listen, I'm going to write it. You're going to read it. You're going to, oh my God, you're going to sign it. And it both copied, boom, done. You know, I had to do the work for him, but that's okay. You know? So yeah, phone.
Awesome. If you could go back to the very beginning of your recruiting career and sit down and give yourself advice, what advice would you give yourself?
That's a great question. I would say, don't take it personally. The rejection was extraordinary. My first phone call was to a guy who ran a big real estate, and he screamed at me and said, "I don't do business with flesh peddlers," and hung up on me. So I'm so stupid, right? I'm like 25, nothing at the time, and I picked up the phone and I called him back and I said, "Ben, David Perry got cut off." "I got cut off. I hung up on you." He slammed it down again. And so I phoned him again. I said, "Ben, David, I don't get it. What's a flesh peddler? That's what you are, blah, 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 blah." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "So you see no value in people like me?" "None." "Fine. He's not a client." Everybody else in town became a client. He became a source. I mean, it's a famous story. You know, the second phone call was to a guy who essentially did the same thing. And then I broke through it. We had a conversation. He said, "Oh, I need this kind of person." So I went out, did a search, hired a property management guy for him. And somewhere along the lines, he said, "Oh, yeah, that's it." He phoned me up to gloat after he closed the deal to tell me I was stupid. I was never going to get paid. I said, "What are you talking about? We had an agreement." I said, "I sent you the paper." He said, "Oh, fuck, you don't know who I am, do you?" I said, "Clearly not." So I called the candidate, told the candidate what had happened. I said, "You can take the job. I'm not going to stop you. That's the kind of business you're going to." So he didn't take the job. Okay. I actually put him somewhere else. No. Here's the piece that matters. About 3 months after that, I needed to set up an accounting department for a new construction company in Ottawa. and I did my first that I got paid for lift out. Took the whole department out of this company, Thomas Ashley and Sons. Okay, no longer around. I'm trying to remember their names the other day, but I took the supervisor accounting, the controller, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and then I took the property manager who I put in a company. So all 4 people went to this new company. None of them knew. I wrote the letter of resignation, and I still use the letter today. And none of them knew about each other until they went out for dinner to celebrate they got new jobs, and they all found out they're going back exact same jobs they had. Can't lie about this. You can't exaggerate. The exact same jobs they had with a new company, all with the same structure, right? I mean, I'm trying to remember, yes, 84 people for that company over the next 3 years. I mean, to the point where, after about the 30th one, I would call them up and say, listen, this is who we hired. This is who we hired. This is why I hired him. Done the references. He starts on Tuesday. They didn't even interview them, Ben. I mean, and we built, well over $1 billion in real estate. I had a black card before a black card was popular. And they had talk about getting spoiled, right? In the ages of 26 and 29 before I finished with these guys. And if I had to go somewhere like San Francisco or I had to go to Buffalo, they would send the jet. They would send plane to pick me up because it was faster to get me down there to the meetings and back. So that's the kind of fun I've had. So why do I do it? Reese, where else can you possibly do this? Where else can you take a nobody like me, and let me build a business that I get to do what I've done? Like, it's been a fantastic life. So I get to the end of it, quote, not quite, but on the tail end, right? I'm on the second half of the 100 years, and 108, and I'm giving back because I know that giving back, people are going to give to me, and or they're going to pick up the mantle and they'll go and do it. I jokingly said, and I wasn't joking, when I texted the other day, I said, we should do, and I've said this to David, we should do a seminar, and have everybody that wants to come pay $1,000 come. We have it in Miami or Florida or whatever. Me, there's you, there's David, there's a bunch of other people that come, people can learn from. But what's the money for? Well, it's to keep out the looky-loos. But more importantly, I would call up Seth Godin and ask him to come down for a day or two, bring his latest book, and take us through his thinking. I've learned more from him probably than anybody else. I mean, I've been really, really fortunate. Stephen Covey endorsed the first book. Seth Godin endorsed the first book. Zig Ziglar and I, before he passed away, I got one of the last letters he sent. And I went back and forth on different things. I get to talk to these people. Me, nobody, because I'd done this book or they'd heard about me, or I had the balls, as one of them said, to pick up the phone and call. We should all get together, share some secrets, make each other better, bring in someone like Seth. He costs $80,000 for a webinar, but it's a private. And the reason I know that is because I was going to do it here in Ottawa, and he agreed. It's going to be a 2-day thing. And then I went out to the community here in Ottawa, and I said, I'm going to bring Seth in. It's going to cost $80,000. I said, how much are you in for? I said, I got just 200 tickets. I'll give you whatever. There's 200 seats in the auditorium. Well, I said, you've got tons of money. Well, so everybody will do stuff for free. It's a Canadian thing. A lot of people will do stuff for free, but they won't put their money where their mouth is. And we talk about DSP and his chat GPT stuff and his omnipresence. Everything he has produced, I bought. Why? Because I want to see what I don't know. And usually I know, 90%. Just learning some new trick or something helps me do my job, and it makes me stop thinking, what's the other guy doing? Or what am I not doing? So I invest in myself and in the team all the time. Most recruiters don't. So what would I tell a recruiter, new or used, or myself back then? I would say keep investing in yourself, because I've done that consistently. I don't wait for someone else to send me on a course. I take X percentage of every fee that comes in, and it goes in a kitty. And then I'll go, okay, well, like last year, we had X in the kitty. And I said to Anita, I said, you want to go to Ireland? said, yeah. I said, what? Oh, someone's invited me to give a speech. Oh, really? They're going to pay you? I said, take it out of the kitty. We'll fly. We'll give the speech. She said, then what are we going to do? I said, well, then we're going to take the next 14 days to travel Ireland. Said she'd never been. So I dragged her. We went over. We stood on stage. We talked for about an hour and a half. And then we ran like hell from Dublin to the train station to get to Belfast so we could get up at 6 in the morning to do the Game of Thrones tours the next day. And then we did everything junky. But I mean, you do this. You go to Paris with your wife.
Yeah.
So, this job gives you immense freedom and immense power, especially over your own life. Most people don't have it. So if I had known that back then, I probably would have worked 3 times as hard, because there'd been a bunch of times that I just should have thrown in the towel. I mean, after the stroke, everybody said, no, just take it easy, get better. Better? If I don't work, we don't eat, because the insurance company pulled a fast one on us. So I was speaking words, not groups of words, within 5 days of having the stroke. I could not use my hands for probably like this, probably 7 months. My wife came into my office. I got a whiteboard on the desk right over top of me here. It's 4x8. And she came into the office one day and I said, I had just gotten off the phone with my editor at Wiley and convinced her that we should do the second edition of Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters. And she comes in, she said, what are you talking about? She said, you can't use your hands. You can't think, you can't read. Couldn't read at that point yet. I said, don't worry about it. She comes in the next day and she looks at my whiteboard and says, what's that? And I just looked at her and she goes, well, I couldn't write, but I could draw. So I had drawn out 12 chapters of the book. And then it was a function of, okay, what do people need to know now that's different from when I wrote the first one? Who do I know that can help me with this? I didn't tell any of the recruiters that I called. Maybe Rayanne was the only one probably, that I had the stroke. And I got them all to contribute to the book. And they probably contributed 10,000 words to a 95,000 word book. Made it a much better book. It made it more believable, because otherwise it was just the rantings of this crazy man. And did the same thing with the 3rd edition, and I'll do the same thing.
Phenomenal.
Question.
It also did.
Edit this stuff.
So. I'm typically pretty light on the editing. The thing,
no one's going to listen to this whole
thing. The thing, if you want to get laugh over, this part I'll probably edit it out, but I most time edit out like the you-knows, the ums, and that kind of stuff. But yeah, hey, like David, this was a phenomenal interview. Once again, I always love speaking with you. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you would love to share with the listeners?
I'd like the recruiting industry to internalize one fact. We are in the recruiting industry's golden age. There's never been a better time to be in the industry. Everybody is looking for solutions, problems. Some of them don't even know they have the problem. If you can keep your wits about you, that shouldn't be a problem. And do other things other than go begging. Wrong term. That was, I should never have said. Please delete that. Never appear hat in hand, because you have solutions in terms of your skill sets that employers need, and they need it desperate. This next book, Pictures Need Leaders, is all about how North America needs to change how they manage talent so that they can beat China and everybody else in the 4th industrial revolution. First 3 have gone by, steam, electricity, computing power. The winners were all Western civilization. No guarantee that who's going to win the 4th industrial. The first 3 were all about eliminating people from the equation, putting the machines around people, all that kind of stuff. fourth industrial revolution is not about, it's not about bits and bytes, leads and seeds. It's all about talent and how you find talent that understands how to bring talent together. Steve Jobs has talked about this for years. Hire smart people and get it. Everybody, oh, yeah, and then they don't do it. Companies that are succeeding today find leaders who understand how to build common cause, get people to believe themselves, get people to believe in their team, and get people to work for the common good, common cause. Those people are rare. They exist. They're not looking for jobs. They all have jobs. And when they are available, it's for a microsecond because people find out, they go after them. It's like finding out that Gretzky wants to return to the ice. Think anybody have an interest? Yeah, goddamn right. Michael Jordan, same thing. Football players, same thing. Finding people that can lead people and lead them well in the fourth industrial revolution is the key to winning. How you find those people is not through typical tactics that recruiters and companies use, because it ain't about money. It's about much more than money. You need to figure that out, and you need to get good at it. Because once you do, you can make a difference in that company you're working for, and you win as they win. As they win, the economy. And as the economy wins, North America wins. The other side of that coin is if we don't do this, and this is what I'm doing, this book's all about. We don't do that, then it's a race to the bottom to provide the most for the least. And we humans will become cogs in a wheel. I just got finished reading for the second or third time the most depressing book I've ever read, which is George Orwell's 1984. If people haven't read it, you should. Because as recruiters, it might be just enough for you to go, oh no, I want to be part of the other side of this. So probably not what you wanted me to end with. But this is a golden age. People can make a fortune. They can make a real difference. They can set themselves and their children and their communities up for life. We talked about the schools I helped. It wasn't the building the schools. That was the exercise. The goal was to build capacity in the people. I trained 30 other people over the 14 years I was chair of that board. 30 other people to ask good questions and to be able to figure out how to assemble people. I sent 30 people out in the world, the unsuspecting world. I spent 30 people out there who actually understand how to get stuff done. I'll stop.
Phenomenal, David. David, once again, I know I've had you on here before. I'll bring you back on again. It's always an incredible guest. But definitely for the listeners, I hope you guys enjoyed this. David did a great job. One, talking about the job board for recruiters, built by recruiters. Also, not too many people do a good job breaking down what they do. And I know this was a quick podcast. David actually has some books where he's literally broken down his exact process, everything he has done. So definitely I would recommend picking up Hiring for Greatness and Executive Recruiting for Dummies, where he's done the hard work. And you just got to all you have to do is literally just pick it up and learn. So once again, David, thank you for coming on. And for the listeners, keep crushing it.